When new tech like DLSS came out, there was a lot of concerns about, oh, it's gonna maybe potentially lead to developers being more lazy with optimization in their games and such. Or more importantly, the engines that developers are utilizing are gonna be, the developers for those engines will be more lazy because they'll just more heavily lean on upscaler technology like DLSS, FSR, TSR. And then, you know, as DLSS got better and better, people started really not noticing the upscaling. The noise was better. It started to look very much like native resolution. So that pushback really kind of died off. Then rose a new tech over the last couple of years called Frame-Gen, where you actually have AI interpolated frames that are injected in between the natively rendered frames, giving you effectively double the frame rate at the cost of it not being real, and also the cost of input latency, where you're only getting the input of what you're doing with your mouse and keyboard that show on the actual drawn frames, not the interpolated frames. Then we had multi-frame gen come out, which now we had 2x, 3x, 4x, and I think now we're up to 6x. And let's not even talk about the AI filter slop that you can get on top of games. And the biggest pushback with frame gen has been the discussion of developers are just gonna get extra lazy because they're gonna expect you to just turn on this feature set to instantly double, triple, or quadruple your frame rate, perceived frame rate. And I thought to myself, man, I wonder how long it'll be before we start seeing that really make its way into games where those are features you have to turn on to really get playable frame rates. Well, as much as I love the game Windrose, it runs on UE5 or Unreal Engine 5, and it's a perfect showcase for what lazy development looks like. Now let me talk about something in the comments real quick. I said that this game is so much fun to play, and that is true, and I've put 116 hours into this game since it launched. Well, actually, I didn't start playing it till the beginning of this month. So I have put a full-time job per week into this game so far. So I've got a really good first-hand perspective of what it's like to play this game and where some of its nuances are. Now, I need to say this too. I said it was an indie title showing AAA titles how it should be done. And so many people were like, oh, don't tell Jay it's part of Palworld. No, it's not. It's actually not part of Palworld. Palworld got involved to help distribute the title. They had nothing to do with the development of the title. Kraken Express is actually a development company in Uzbekistan. When the hell is the last time you have heard of a game come out and shake things up, let alone be coming out of Uzbekistan? It's just fun to say, Uzbekistan. Anyway, I think the game is so much fun. The problem with this is a gray area conversation I'm going to share with you right now where I'm not holding this against Kraken Express because they just crossed 2 million downloads since April 14th on an early access title. Why? Because it really just merges together something like Minecraft and ultimate survival type world, which the world, it does need more. Like they need to expand the world, and they're going to. They have another land that's going to open, Ashlands or whatever. It's going to open up later. Anyway. What's going to keep the game, sidebar conversation, what's going to keep the game interesting for people is they're going to have to keep content coming and keep expanding, right? But for people like me, I'm level 13 right now, which is actually, it takes a while to get to level 13 if you know how the game works. You get no XP by killing things, you get no XP by farming, you only get XP by discovering and completing quests, and those quests can be very difficult at times. Anyway, I digress. What I'm starting to say here is that if this had been a AAA title that has the support of engineers and developers that are sent over from, Unreal Engine to help optimize the title, NVIDIA engineers to help optimize, the drivers and such for an implementation of feature sets into the game from NVIDIA, Intel, and AMD, I bet you Kraken Express did not have a whole lot of access to those tool sets and that insight from those developers. So the reason why I say this conversation is a gray area is because this is an example of what AAA titles are kind of starting to do, and which is why I'm saying that our worst fears are coming true, because we're seeing it on an indie title where they kind of have to lean on it, but AAA titles are doing this too, and we know that for a fact. So what I'm talking about here is the incredible, poorly optimized game that this is. So right now I have a 5090 TUF that is installed right here. This is like the best of the best in terms of like top tier GPU. I mean, yeah, I know there's the Astral and stuff above it, but I mean, it's a 5090. 5090 is a 5090, right? For the most part. Right now I am running TSR, if we look at settings, and I love that I can change these settings in real time, by the way. I'm running TSR at 100% scaling. Essentially, I have removed all upscaling. This is native resolution, no DLSS or anything. I am running 4K and I do have reflex mode set to boost. That will be important in a moment. I have no frame rate limit. I'm currently running at high settings. I can go epic. It doesn't change a whole lot. But our base frame rate looking out into the ocean, which is an overcast day, and it does affect your draw distance, by the way. I'm getting 91 FPS. I'm using 16 gigabytes of system RAM, which is crazy. I do think that there's a heavy like system RAM usage, like VRAM or DRAM usage in this title, which is showing some of its optimization issues too. We are currently using 10 gigabytes, well, theoretically, I mean, this number is what's kind of being requested. The GPU has 32 gigs, so there should be no reason why we're not using all 10 gigs, but 10 gigs of video RAM. GPU is fairly loaded in the low to mid 90s, 3000 megahertz, 62C right now. To generate in 4K, 92 frames on a 5090. That is not great. It's really not great. If I turn around, this is one of my, what I'm calling my northern outpost. It's just a small little outpost I built in a northern map, or a northern island. The moment I turn around, we drop down to 68 FPS. Now, yes, I know I'm in 4K, but the thing is, this is a 5090, all right? If I set this down to 1440p real quick, you'll see it is not a massive change in performance. Okay, so I'm now getting 102 FPS with a 5090 in 1440p. So not good. But what I'm gonna show you here is the aspect of this game that really keeps people like me excited and interested is the whole free building experience where you farm materials and you, like I built this, like this is the little starter hut, right? But I built my little house here, right? I've got my heads on there that I've hunted and found. And look, inside here now I'm down to 57 FPS because one of the things we also found are these torches and these fire effects dramatically hit performance, like incredibly difficult. I don't know why, but look at my FPS in here now. 58 FPS, 59 FPS, and that's not even draw distance. That's just every single one of these blocks, right? Has 6 sides to it. And it is rendering all 6 sides of the block. So it's not very efficient in the build aspect of however many pieces it is to build this little hut is dramatically affecting performance. If I come back outside, it improves because I'm farther away from those fire. The fire, and it's not like, yes, I'm running a mod. Obviously, this is not the normal campfire. This is what looks like the fast travel points in the cities. There are some mods on this game, but none of it is infecting or impacting performance. It's things like stack mods and stuff like that, right? So anyway, if I come over here, like the fires out here with the furnaces and stuff, they don't hit the performance quite as hard. But I got my little farm going back here, just basic stuff. This is still somewhat playable, but please remember I'm on a 5090. If I were on like a 4070 or a 4060 Ti or a 3080, 3070, something like that, more realistic that people might be running, hell, even older than that, you're now dropping below UE5 requirements and minimum recommendations. Let me show you what happens when I go to my pirate port, if you will. I have spent a stupid amount of time working on this port. This is when I realized, oh, we've got a problem. It legitimately caused IKEA to have to go out and buy a new GPU just to move around in my port, because look at my FPS right now. I am at 38 FPS in my pirate port with a 5090 at native 4K resolution at high settings. But Jay, you've got it at high. Okay, well, let's go to low and see what happens here. So if I go to low, we gain 12, 13 FPS, right? And not a huge visual impact, to be honest. Like, it really didn't change much. But, yeah, and these are all my boats and stuff here, right? So as I walk around, just watch the FPS. We're in the 40s, right? This is my frigate. So I have a couple different frigates. I have this frigate, which is for, like, large shipments, all the slots. So that's my Liberty Biberty. This is, you guys will like this. This is tax evasion. Screw King Charles. Anyway, this is No Regrets. And then this one over here is one of my personal favorites. Booty Plunderer. So look at the FPS though. This is my tavern that I built. Lots of fire effects, right? So we'll do a quick tour of my tavern. I got all those little torches and stuff down here, but look at them, 40s, right?
And remember guys, we're on low on a 5090.
Low right now. Oh yeah, we should put that back up to, go back to high, shall we? Look at this, 30s.
Oh my God.
Oh, it's so gross. Anyway, this is my tavern. I built all this, yes. Yes, I took the time to build all this. And yeah, I know there's people that have a lot bigger cities than this, but I also have a life and a family and a job. So the fact that I've still built this and all of that's kind of impressive, right? Up here is the living quarters. These are rooms you can rent by the hour. Pirate town, okay? So anyway, check out my bathroom. You ready for this? Look at this. The poop chair. You know, back then they crapped in a chair with a hole in it into a pot. So I actually built the platform to have a poop chair. I forget what it's called. Anyway, this is my bathroom. And if we come over here, this is my private quarters. So it's got my office, right? My desk and stuff. So I gotta look out there and be like, what a rock, you know? And then this is my sleeping quarters. But look at the FPS. It's pretty terrible, right? What I'm gonna demonstrate to you is the laziness of the development and what they're relying on, which is our biggest fears. So over here, I'm building more storage, more space. So this is like a, look at the God rays. It looks so good though. Anyway, this is my creepy, skeevy pirate alley, right? So I've got, this is gonna be a basement for the building I'm building above. This is just another little storage area here. No lights in here right now. And then I've got all this other area that I've been preparing to build. I'm gonna build like a whole fortress out here. Anyway, what the developers, and I talk about the lazy aspect of it is, what they're counting on is for you to start using the technology that people have really strongly been pushing back against. So if I go ahead and now, let's just reduce this to 66%, which is kind of normal for 4K upscaling. So now we've upscaled it, and we just went from the 30s up to the 50s, right? In my opinion, if you spent $3,000 plus on a graphics card, you sure as hell better be getting more than 53 FPS in a game. Now this again is a problem with the build area, not just the title, because again, each individual piece that I have placed, right, if I show you as an example, like that's a piece, 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 piece, all of those are being rendered individually, right? I'll show you in a minute when I go to a pre-rendered town that they've compiled, right? So if this was a developer, they would say, okay, here's all the entities we built. That building would be one entity built in a model builder as one thing and then popped into the game. As us building this like piece by piece, that doesn't happen to us. We don't get to compile and more efficiently create those entities. So what they now count on you to do is do something like, I don't know, now let's go DLSS. DLSS balanced. Now look at my FPS. Right? So now we're at 55. Still not great. It's really not great. But what they're ultimately, I think, counting on is for you to enable Frame-Gen. And this is now where we're seeing this. So 2x Frame-Gen mode, right? And don't forget, only 50 series gets multi-Frame-Gen. 40 series gets Frame-Gen. 30 series technically gets Frame-Gen as well, like 2x Frame-Gen. Multi-Frame-Gen only exists in 50 series. Now, look, 87 FPS, and admittedly it's smooth. And the input lag in a game like this is very difficult to measure. It's actually not that bad. And because it has reflex on there, which is supposed to help with that, you have enabled and boost. I don't know why you wouldn't just run boost, like make it as fast as possible. But here's the problem. At home, I obviously run in 4K with HDR on, and I have no choice but to run it technically in 3x mode back home. Because what eventually happens now to my FPS, as you can see, this is the way the game should be natively. Gray area, I gotta go back to the beginning, independent developer now in a player-built area with, I don't know, a few ten thousands of pieces to build this wharf right here. So if I go to, and the input latency, yes, I've got the LDAT I could use to measure it. We still aren't experts on using it yet, so we're taking some time on that. It is slightly noticeable, but remember, it's based on base frame rate. So that input latency is based on that initial 50 FPS you saw that I was getting. So when it comes to fighting creatures and stuff, it's not that bad. What I'm gonna show you in a minute is I'm gonna put like a 4070 on here, then you're going to see just how bad it is. Because here's what I experienced. Renee, Mr. Caballero, who does live streams with me on Potential Land Games, he's running on a 30s series, I think. I could be wrong, but anyway, his base frame rate was like 15 FPS in here. So he turned on Frame-Gen and then was getting 30-ish FPS with Frame-Gen on, settings on low at a lower resolution than me, like 1440p, and his movement was like almost a second delayed. So it's only playable because there's a $3,000 graphics card plopped on this system. Everything is fine when you get away from like those builder areas. So if I come over here we'll go back to Tortuga, now watch the frame rate. Right? And again, this is way more dense than my area, but that's because of the fact that this is one thing they built in a model builder in the engine. With developers, when they run something like UE engine and all that, they get assets that they can utilize and they can build all this and then render it as one thing, which is a lot easier than rendering this as 5,000 things to create it. Look at this FPS. Let me plop a realistic graphics card on here so that we can really see how bad it is. Okay, so the 4070 FE is installed right now. Not a card I would recommend in 4K. So I'm gonna demonstrate this in 1440p because it's not fair to throw it in 4K, right? So this is 1440p, 4070 FE right now. DLSS is on balanced. Boost, no Frame-Gen currently on right now. There it is right there, no Frame-Gen, and we are still at high settings. So here we are in Tortuga with DLSS on balance. Now we're down to 66 FPS, right? Which is not great, but at the same time, I'm wondering if this is even, like I've had people's computers crash coming to my town. So I'm curious as to what's gonna happen right now. So with DLSS on balance, it's a 12 gigabyte card, but it's using roughly about 7 gigs of it. Look at this, 29 FPS with DLSS on.
Balance, not even quality. Balance.
Yeah, so let's go to quality, shall we? A couple of FPS down, not too bad. But if I go to low.
It's interesting though, look at the GPU detail.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. The GPU is not even fully loaded. Like, what is happening here? Look at this, 38. Oh, this is what it's like when everyone else comes to my city and they're like, hey, look at Jay's thing. It's like I'm looking at it through a strobe light, But if I come up to my tavern, which is hard to, geez, I'm stuck on the wall, which is hard to run. So, yeah, clearly not what we would call playable. So if I come now to settings, video, let's go to ultra performance. It's now we're up to 50. I mean, granted, it's hard to see without pixel peeping. My guy is definitely noisy and smudgy looking. But again, base res has really dropped, so it's having a hard time. The details are lost in that resolution drop. I think what they're truly expecting you to do, like I said, is go something like balanced here, and then Frame-Gen on, and it just broke the game, I think. Okay, it's back.
There you go.
And you only get 2x mode in this, but now look at the FPS. It's kind of hard to see, but now there is a more noticeable jello effect on there, but now look, 77 FPS. It's clearly an example of Frame-Gen is intended to be used. That's why it has FSR Frame-Gen in there as well. All I did was set it to quality DLSS, and it just completely, like, the computer's still on. Anyway, I think I proved my point. The fears as gamers that we've had is, and I've heard people be like, gamers, who cares about gamers? Like, why are you even here then? What are you building your computers for? We talk about gaming out here so much. But anyway, I just really hope that our biggest fears are not coming true, and this is more of an indie developer thing, but I don't think that's true. I think a lot of game developers are now just leaning on this tech to say, hey, look, we can just get more frame rate by you enabling these feature sets, but there's too many concessions that have to be made for that. If you're running a lower end GPU and you turn on multi-frame gen, like say you're running a 5060 Ti or 5060 and you turn on multi-frame gen, you're just gonna have an unplayable, laggy input experience, even with reflex boost turned on. Anyway, time to go. I'm curious, I wanna research this sort of stuff. I wanna start talking about this more, especially with gaming. What are the titles that you know of that heavily rely on turning on frame gen to even try and get a playable experience out of it? I've heard, Resident Evil Requiem is kind of hard to run. I think it's on the same engine as well. I could be wrong. But I've heard about some other titles that are pretty difficult to run that are on UE. So it's kind of a UE problem, also with a dev problem. Maybe this game wasn't possible on a different engine when it comes to the build aspects. I don't know. I'd really love it if someone from Kraken Express is watching this video could reach out to me and be like, Jay, you're full of shit. Here's why we did it. I'd love to be wrong. But the reality is this is a valid result we just showed you. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I wish I wasn't reporting on a game I like so much that's literally heavily leaning. Because in my game, my system at home, I was like, I see everything just fine. And everyone's like, yeah, but you're in a fucking 5090, dude. It's like we're over here on 30s, 80s and can't move in your town. That's why I made this video. And to honor them. I guess I could honor them by sending them all 5090s, but that's not going to happen either. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one. I broke it! It's broken.